welcome to Majesco's podcast series with a focus on industry influencers. I'm really thrilled today to have Dr. Robin Kiera join me on this month's podcast. Robin and I met a couple of years ago, and it has been such a pleasure to get to know him. And what's really going to be interesting for today is that Robin brings a European perspective. He's based over in Europe, but has spent quite a bit of time on both sides of the pond, so to speak. So welcome, Robin.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm honored.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to do is for our audience is have you give a little bit of background on yourself and how you got involved in insurance and in particular.
Well, happy to do so, but first let me make a confession. I have been a recovering sales agent now for 5 years. I have not sold one policy in 5 years, but that's how I started actually in the insurance industry as part of the Allianz management program. That sounds fancy, but again, you start as a sales agent, so I know how a typical living room of a client looks like. I then quickly went to a department close to the board inside Allianz, and we did large-scale transformation projects, but in a very classical old-school IT way. I left the company, went to a startup during a time in which it was not cool yet to work for startups. So my boss back in the days was really surprised when I handed him the note, and he actually said, "And to which department are you changing?" I'm like, "Not changing, I'm actually kind of leaving." But I, did not tell him that I was going to an online gaming startup because he probably would have called the company doctor. I also went to work for a regional insurer where I learned how not to do the digital transformation. And at this online gaming startup, we actually built one product, or we built several products, but one was particularly successful, making over $1 billion in its lifetime. And at the private bank, we also produced an app which made over 1.4 billion assets under information, which was really successful at the time. So I'm a product and IT guy in the end, but who started sales of insurance. At the side, I had a blog, digitalscouting.de, which exploded over the years into a platform for the movers and shakers of insurance and finance industry. We once discovered a small startup and said very early that's going to be very big. It was Lemonade. We also predicted Amazon is going to enter the insurance industry and GAFA in general. We were laughed at, and now I think nobody laughs about that anymore. And we were right several times, but we were also wrong several times, but the people remember the times we were right. So that helped us really gain a lot of traction. We have millions of views each month, so that's really exciting.
Yeah, so you and I both have some really interesting backgrounds. My background in a number of different insurance companies in both IT and in business for a number of years, and then moved on to Accord, the industry standards organization, and then a technology company, and then an industry analyst, and then back to a technology company. And I think that diversity of background and that diversity of working for different types of parts of the insurance industry and the ecosystem really provides a unique kind of perspective, particularly in today's world with so much change and disruption. Would you agree with that, Robin?
I agree totally. And that's also the reason why I think a lot of insurers at some point said, "Robin, we like your speeches and your content, but what does it mean actually for us?" So actually we are now a consulting company. But what I understand actually is a lot of career moves that are announced in industry magazines. When you see the sales CSO, the sales lead or manager or a board member of one insurer moves to the other one, that's okay. But I would love actually to see the head of Google of Europe moving to an insurer, or that some regional insurer hires the senior VP of Facebook. So we have a closed community, a closed shop, at least in Central Europe for sure. And I think it's dramatically important that we see some influx from outside, and also that we see people from the inside moving to various parts of the value chain in order to be able to translate the different culture and needs, for example, between sales and the headquarters.
I think it's also important because they see things differently, because it's not, the way that it's always been done. And they really kind of bring a whole different perspective to different parts of the organization that without change, you really can't see.
And I think this is the result or the reason why some insurtech are so successful, because they did not stop when somebody said we have always done it this way. They just pursued their vision and their assumptions, and that's why they are successful, especially in customer-facing front-end applications.
Yeah, I know, and some information that you asked me for in some upcoming excerpts that you're going to be providing out.
Yeah.
I talked about this kind of view that I think one of the things that InsurTechs has really done very successfully is they've taken an outside-in perspective. It's been about the customer first and the market first, instead, where traditionally most insurers have looked at it from an inside-out perspective, looking at it to optimize the business, looking at it the way they've always done the business, and the way that insurance was defined. And I think those two diverging views are really the crux of really where some of the challenges exist and where a lot of the disruption is happening. Your thoughts on that, Robin?
I totally agree, but I would not even say that's inside out and inside out, outside in and inside out. I would say it has also to do what is the role of the customer. So of course it makes sense to streamline processes. That if you streamline a broken process, you have at the end a broken streamlined process. Or if you digitalize a broken process, you have a broken digital process. One example are the early insurance folders we saw especially in Europe. Yeah, they are a nice idea and technically sophisticated, and a lot of people thought they were not able to put insurance policies into an app. But this does not help the customer, because I don't know about you, but I never come home saying, honey, let's have a look at our insurance folder. Nobody does this. And so that's the reason why these apps never were successful. Some are, but they are successful because of cooperations with other industries. So I think it's super important, even though I cannot stand hearing this anymore, but to be really customer centric and focused and delivering the customer services and digital products and services that really help them in their daily life. That has been always our success in building apps that made $1 billion or were $1 billion worth at the end.
Yep. So we met about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, at the Global Insurance Symposium in Des Moines, Iowa, a new hubbub of InsurTech here in the United States. And when I think back 2 years ago, there's a lot that has changed in that short period of time.
Yeah.
What do you think has changed in that short period of time for the industry? And then secondly, what do you see as the difference between what's happening in Europe versus what's happening in the US or North America?
Yeah, so I think the hype is over and reality is here. What does that mean? Now hard deep KPIs are demanded by the market, by the public. So the times in which you can impress for a long period of time with a video on YouTube of your chatbot are over. Now it's real business and real KPIs are demanded. I personally think, I sometimes have the feeling certain investors don't see it that way, but if you see the public discussion, you need to deliver more now as an incumbent or as an insurtech. And I think from the incumbent side, almost nobody makes fun about the internet anymore. 2 years ago, you had decision maker publicly really showing what they truly thought about it. But only because nobody makes fun about the internet anymore doesn't mean that incumbents actually face this issue. It's just that they learned their PR lesson. Because if you look at the decision makers, in a lot of cases, it's still the same people running the show that actually brought the industry to where it's right now, and that's in trouble. When I see Europe versus the US, the insurtech fundings are larger in the US, even though you have some large rounds here too, with N26 and WeFox, for example. When it comes to incumbents, regulators over here, they have a minimum requirements to the technical and capital requirements for incumbents. So you don't see here this mini insurers with just, 2 different ledgers. So I think that's a difference. The big incumbents, I think they have a similar situation. You have some who are on top, some who will be positive surprises, and some who will have negative surprises. And when it comes to the customer, I think I wouldn't see the big difference between US and Europe. I would see some countries like US, Canada, Norway, Holland, Switzerland that are open to new technology, for example, new payment methods. And you have some laggards, Germany, Austria, that are quite distant to these new technologies when it comes to the behavior of the customer. So I would see there more I wouldn't see there the difference in the pond actually.
Yeah, you know, one of the things a group of us InsurTech influencers have been talking via one of the posts that you recently posted on LinkedIn around the role of reinsurers, and I think about the major reinsurers, you know, many of them based over in Europe. And they've really been at the forefront of InsurTech and a lot of this, you know, disruption and change. And, you know, there's been a lot of conversation around that. And I think part of it is that they've had a lot of capital to use, you know, because reinsurance rates are, you know, we haven't had these massive, thank God, you know, disasters that have had to raise the reinsurance rates. And so they've got capital. But I think the other aspect is that I think they're worried that some of the traditional insurers aren't going to be able to move fast enough to capture some of these new innovative market opportunities, whether it's on demand, it's with autonomous vehicles, it's with gig and sharing economy, whatever the type of product is for this next generation of customers. I think they're seeing it and trying to figure out how they're going to capture it as primary insurers. Would you agree, Robin?
Well, I can tell a funny story that actually happened in San Francisco at a conference. You had a direct insurer from Europe and a reinsurer from Europe. I don't say the country because if you would say the country, it would be quite obvious who it would be. But they were talking, and one startup after the other in San Francisco thanked their reinsurer. In a lot of cases, it were reinsurer from Europe. And at some point, the senior decision maker of the direct insurer said to the senior decision maker of the reinsurer, you know what? I'm so tired. We have been doing great business for 100 years, and now you guys are supporting these new guys attacking us. That was the direct insurer, and the reinsurer said, well, we don't believe that you're going to make it. And this was already also, I think, 3 years ago. So I think the sentiment that reinsurers prepare for a future in which not all incumbents take the opportunity and grow a lot and use the opportunity of digital transformation, I think that's a fact. And I am every time surprised with what kind of precision and strategic way of thinking a lot of reinsurers are actually operating. And I think they are the wild card in the game of the four players: InsurTech, incumbents, tech companies, and reinsurers. If I would need to bet my money on one player who is going to surprise us all, I would say it's a reinsurer.
Yep. Yeah, it's been an interesting conversation out there. So, you know, one of the things that we talked about, and obviously has been a big part of the whole InsurTech and innovation kind of focus, has been around technology, and then also ecosystems. You know, and the technology, I kind of like to call it the next gen technology. So it's cloud, it's API enabled, it's microservices, it's artificial intelligence, machine learning, all of those different types of technologies. But it's also around recognizing that we can't build everything ourselves and that we can't do everything ourselves. And so ecosystems become really important. Give me your view on how ecosystems and these next gen technologies, how rapidly they've really evolved here the last 3 to 4 years, and what your view is on where they're going to take us as an industry.
Well, I see more and more cooperations between service providers and new service providers, incumbents that are actually letting go of the companies they have working together for 20, 30 years and now, you know, trying out new ones. I see this as a trend actually all over the place. But what I would say, all the new next tech that doesn't help you if you don't have a strategy for digital products and service, or also content to provide to your customer. All this technology doesn't help you if you only provide a sales funnel or a contract policy management system or a customer relationship management system. If you do not provide the customer with digital product and service that help them in their daily lives, where they're excited to use it, and you can become parts of the daily life of your customer, then that doesn't help you. That will not help you. Technology is not the answer. Technology is a tool to reach a future in which you are still relevant.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's why, as we've done our primary research to consumers and to small, medium business owners, we really see that their use of digital types of technologies are a massive influence in how they want to interact and engage with other businesses like insurance. And I think what's really going to be interesting is that when you look at the next 6 years, millennials and Gen Z within the next 6 years become the dominant buying demographic across all industries, including insurance, within 6 years. And that itself is going to change a lot of dynamics for existing insurers that haven't begun to figure out not just modernizing their business, but also creating something new that's going to be truly digital in nature, and different kinds of products that are going to really fit the needs and behaviors of those customers, because it's very different.
Totally. And I'm not sure if you as an incumbent have not started yet, how much time you have left to actually do it.
Yeah, exactly. So you're working with a number of insurers, like you talked about earlier. How can insurers give some insights based on the work that you've been doing? How can insurers create a vision and a path to that future if they haven't really begun per se to really kind of understand where they need to be in the future? What would you recommend that they do?
I strongly believe the first step is to accept reality. You know, we don't live in the world of the 80s and 90s anymore. This is just reality. And decision makers need to accept that. The good old times are over. It doesn't mean that we cannot have new good old times, but we need to accept the reality of the digital transformation, of the new GAFAs coming up, and of new players in the market. That's the first step. And then we have to look. It's actually a lot of decision makers always ask me when I present them, what our concept is. They say, oh, what is the secret? I'm like, it's no secret. It's like doing sports. If you want to be, a fit person, do what other people that became fit persons actually did. It's really easy. And if you want to become a company that's successful in the digital era we live in, then do what companies did that became successful in the digital era we live in. And there are just, a few secret sauces you can do as an insurer, which is, don't only communicate once every 8 years with your customer, but try to become part of their daily life. Yeah, that's super hard to win the home screen's hearts and minds of your customer. It's super hard. It's a multi-trillion-dollar game. But if you do it and you achieve it, you can grow exponentially. What you need to do it for is build digital products and services on different interfaces, on different platforms, may it be apps, may it be website, may it be voice skills, in order to excite your customer base and to truly help them. Don't only provide a sales process to them, but really provide something in which they can and manage their lives better, and maybe lead the way to financial freedom for all.
Yeah, and something you said there, Robin, is build digital products on a different platform. Yeah. Because building those digital products and the pricing of those products, if you build it on a different set of technology that's on the cloud, it's using different technologies, and it's not dependent upon a lot of that legacy organizational structure and all of the costs associated to it, the pricing of those products are going to be substantially different than if you tried to do it on your existing stuff. And really positions you much more competitively to really kind of go out and capture that market. And I think that's a big piece that a number of insurers are still trying to build that stuff, but they're doing it on their old stuff. And so the cost of that is still so high, as compared to trying to do it brand new, as you say. Yeah.
And of course, there needs to be some integration layer, and you need to get the data out of the old systems. But I mean, I once visited a German insurer, and I had to talk with a senior VP for large parts of the IT infrastructure. And I said, can you deliver me an overview about what kind of technology you have, what kind of systems you have, what kind of programs you have, and who's responsible for what? He said, no. We don't have an overview of technique. I have everything in my head. And I said, come on, yeah, I get it. Yeah, you don't like me that we are here, but please give me this information and this overview because, you know, you have presentations in front of the board since 20 years. So you probably don't just show up like this. He said, no, I do. And then I talk out of my head. Well, I can individually understand it because this was his insurance against getting fired at some point if he has a monopole on all the broken systems. But this is a dramatic situation, and this actually needs to change.
Yep. So Robin, if you could pick one word or phrase to describe the future of insurance, what would it be?
I would say financial freedom for all.
Love it. That's a great statement. Love it.